Okay, welcome to today's video where we're going to look at a notebook we made today which walks through a couple different ways to access data in rows. This notebook is called Crypto ETH Blockchain Lifetime Value. It was me trying to figure out a couple different things related to how many total ETH have been traded ever and what's the value of that, and how many different ways can you answer that question. So first of all, this is a notebook in its default mode. We call it view mode. What I'm going to do now is edit this notebook on tape to try to show you how we would turn it into something that has these dots, which is confusing and useful for data modeling, and actually turn it into something you would want to see. So we're going to go edit mode. If you don't own the notebook, you can say explore this notebook. You'll see all these things pop up. Okay, and let's walk through this notebook a little bit as a start. This first cell, we call this a block, is a markdown block. This is where you insert text or formatting images, all kinds of stuff in here. Markdown's kind of a technical term. Think of this as text. This is what we call a code block. We tell it's a code block because it's blue, this one's green. Code block is where you can put in things like USA inflation. You can see that I've actually mapped these together in the past and run it, or you could say F. You get data coming in at the end. If you ever want to know what one of these lines is, you can go to details and look at how it was made, or you can click on show tree. And here you can see that I've actually made an object called this is code block, points to inflation, which is why these are the same thing. So let's go here and close that tree and name this. We're going to say, let's leave that as this is a code block and say US inflation. And you'll see that the title changed. So now when we go into view mode, all this stuff will disappear. It'll be a lot easier to look at. So below is where we start to really get into stuff that might be relevant to crypto folks, where we have two measures of total value of transactions per day on the Ethereum blockchain. We have it from BitInfo charts and from us querying the blockchain. So here's BitInfo charts. You can see a lot of activity, tens of millions of coins traded in the early 2017s when they were getting the system off the ground. And now we trade, 1 million, 2 million a day. Okay, and let's do explore tree. You can see that we've generated this from sourcing from their data, or you could look at the red one. And what you're actually going to find is some SQL. Double click on it. It'll open up a SQL block, which is red. And it'll run that SQL. It'll give you a table as a result. Now, rows, we'd like to deal with time series. So if you look up in this logic, you'll see that I pushed it as a table, .campbell.table. And then when I ran logic on top of that, I ran this little function called time series. And then took the column date and the column total transaction value, called those total transaction value easily enough. And then that gets baked into a couple other things. So let's close this tree. Let's exit this so that people can read it later. And just walk through this notebook. This is a SQL block, and it's going to say select the timestamp, select the block number, and select the value, call that value F, from the table in the crypto Ethereum, what we call the ETH blockchain. We should probably rename that. .transactions, the table transactions. Order by block timestamp descending, aka give me the last 3 blocks on the blockchain. And so you can see that as of recording, these are the last transactions, and they're all on block number this. Some of them are really small, some of them are bigger. We can use this, just that one table, to now add up all of the ETH ever traded, right? And so this is BitInfo charts version of that data, and this is our version of that data, my version. And you can see that to get it, we had to take the daily flow of BitInfo charts and run a function cum_sum or cumulative sum, which then turns a line that goes like this into a line that goes up and to the right, as we want to see it. And this is saying, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, that there's been about 10 billion ETH traded ever. Interesting. So how can we get from there to something that I might want to understand? Well, you could think of that as 10 billion ETH times 1K a coin is at today's exchange rates, 1,200 a coin. That means that the total lifetime value in US dollars of all of the coins ever traded is 12 trillion. 12 trillion. But interestingly enough, because the price is so volatile, that even though we had a lot less transactions in the past, you can see even back here, the value of all that activity in the universe was magnified by a factor of 5 along with the price. Right? The price is more volatile than the quantity, so the cumulative total times quantity is going to move around a lot based on the price. This is just different ways of looking at that. So we're going to take this, play with the units to get them on different axes, right? And you can see that there's been 12 billion blocks traded at that price. And again, if you want to understand how those calculations were done, ETH blockchain lifetime value at US price, multiply the price of ETH at today's price. So there's a couple different ways to do this, but that's one way. Okay, that's that red line saying how much is the network growing just from quantities. Okay, another way to look at that data here, units, same thing, right? Same thing. This chart is just saying take that value and divide it by US GDP. That's what this chart is saying. Another way of saying how much activity is occurring. Well, this tree says something different. It says take the monthly change of ETH traded total, multiply that by the average price of ETH in that month, and tell me on an annualized basis, aka multiplied by 12, how much activity that would be. So we can compare it to US GDP. And we can see that right now, the monthly rate of activity, the market for ETH on the chain, this isn't L2, this is anything else, is about 5% of US GDP. And in the past, because the quantities and the prices were changing, that was as high as 20% of US GDP. And interestingly, that's also the case way back in 2018. And you go, well, how can that be the case? In 2018, there weren't that many traded in a lifetime. And you go, yes, but there were a lot of coins being traded per transaction back then. Tons of coins. So there's a lot of coin movement back in 2018. Don't actually know where that's coming from. We'll need to go look at that later. So this notebook is just kind of walking through those different things. There's a couple too many charts down here in the middle. Let's clean it up on tape. So we got okay, this is going to be this is the daily. This is from great. We don't need to edit this one. Okay, here we go. This is the total F traded on the blockchain from this. I'm going to leave the rest here just so people can play around with it. Save it. Show that it runs. This is a cool chart down here. These are the biggest transaction days ever in ETH history. In ETH terms and in dollar terms. Next time we'll work on converting these to dollars. You can see those 2018 days. There's a lot of movement in December 2018. We're going to try to figure out what's going on there. And next time we'll look at some actual periods of interest. So maybe we'll look at some Luna stuff, some if it's connected enough, or some of the deleveraging that happened in June. Anyway, have a good time, guys.